Tonight, the city's fight against the nightmare drug Valkyr took a turn for worse as the body of...
Earlier today, the mayor stated that the drug Valkyr represents a clear and present danger to the entire city of New York.
Max Payne was first introduced to the public back at E3 1998. 3 years later, the game would land on PC, PS2, and the Xbox. Max Payne would spawn 2 sequels, a live-action movie, comic books, and a strong fan following that still exists today. We here at Hidden Machine have been covering the entire Remedy Entertainment catalog, including Max Payne 1 and 2. Development was handed over to Rockstar for Max Payne 3, which released in 2012. I've been doing a lot of research on these games lately, and I've encountered so many people online asking about the future of Max Payne. Will we get a Max Payne 4? Will Rockstar remaster the trilogy and give it the Definitive Edition treatment? Even though it's been nearly 10 years since the last Max Payne game, people are still holding out hope that he'll make a return. Will he? Well, let's take a look at where things are at and see if we can figure out what the future of Max Payne might look like. One possibility for a new Max Payne title would be a proper sequel, Max Payne 4. Although, with the way that sequels are being named these days, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just called Max Payne. Personally, I see this as the least likely way for Max to return to gaming. The character is aged in real time. He was 35 years old in the first game, and by Max Payne 3, he was 47, meaning he's around 57 years old today. Max was having a hard time keeping up in that third game, and even though the character is sober now, it's hard to imagine him being in fighting shape well into his 60s. That said, Stallone was in his 70s while shooting Rambo: Last Blood, and plenty of other aging stars have taken on action roles, especially in recent years. A fourth game could go back in time a bit, but Max's life story has been pretty well documented. He was a cop, then a vigilante, then a drunk security contractor, and then he was a vigilante again, but this time sober, before walking off into the sunset. There aren't really any large chunks of time unaccounted for that could be used to tell a new story. There could be some kind of young Max Payne game, but one of the defining characteristics of Max Payne is that he was a relatively average guy before the death of his family. Like anyone, he definitely had his own personal demons and traumas, but none of the conflicts in his early life were to the same grand scale as the ones that he would face while taking on Acer, the Inner Circle, or the UFE. It could be fun to play as a young Max Payne, partnered up with Alex Balder, but that idea feels like too much of a departure from the precedents set by the other games. It is also possible that we could see some sort of requel in the vein of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, a story that's somewhere between a reboot and a sequel. Maybe Max could play mentor to a young cop who is experiencing something similar to what Max has gone through. It could be argued that this would satisfy fans of the original trilogy of games, while allowing newcomers to the series to identify with a younger protagonist. It could hit a lot of the same beats as the other games, but those scenarios could be experienced with updated graphics and controls. And speaking of updated graphics and controls, we could also see a remake or remaster of the Max Payne series. Capcom has seen success with their Resident Evil remakes. I think that in particular, their remake of Resident Evil 2 was able to maintain everything I loved about the original game, while still finding ways to make it fresh for a modern audience. Many people praised the Demon's Souls remake for being true to the original while also improving on it in different ways. The first 2 Max Payne games have such a unique aesthetic and atmosphere, which I think were born from making the most out of whatever technical limitations the team was facing at the time. For me, a Max Payne remaster or remake would really need to work hard to maintain that spirit, and not just give the game a photorealistic upgrade that would run the risk of losing the feeling of those original games. However, we all know how the GTA remaster went down, and I'd personally prefer that these games were just left alone rather than seeing them get a similar treatment. I'd like to think that Rockstar learned its lesson, but I really have no reason to believe that they wouldn't put out another botched remaster. But is any of this even realistic? Is Max Payne even on Rockstar's radar anymore? Rumors of a new Max Payne game going under the codename Judas have been circulating for a few years, with an unidentified source claiming that the project is a fourth Max Payne game. Rockstar registered the trademark for Judas back in 2016 and renewed it in 2020. However, there is no official acknowledgement of Judas being related to the Max Payne series. On a recent investors call, Take-Two's chief executive officer, Strauss Zelnick, said, "We have the strongest and most diverse pipeline in our company's history, comprised of new intellectual properties, as well as sequels to many of our beloved franchises. We look forward to delivering many of these titles in the coming months and beyond." This statement was followed by a slide showing several Take-Two properties, including Max Payne. While this was reported as news of a possible Max Payne sequel, I don't necessarily see it that way. Remedy Entertainment, the former owners of the Max Payne IP, have also used images of Max Payne in slides that were shown during some of their recent investors' calls. And my gut tells me that neither of these situations are worth reading too far into. Time will tell if we see another Max Payne game, but if we do, what do you want to see from it? Let's talk about it down in the comments. And if you want more Max Payne related videos, be sure to check out the rest of our channel. See ya!